Hey guys, you're very welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by TJ, otherwise known as TJ Painfree on Instagram. TJ was one of the reasons I did what I did last year in terms of the bench press, because I went and sought out expert advice, and TJ was a massive help to me. We're going to talk today about the bench press, and more specifically we're going to talk about the bench press accessories that TJ prescribed to me and why he did that, as well as asking a few other things about the bench press as well. So TJ, thanks for your time, and do you want to give a brief introduction to yourself, who you were?
Yeah, so I'm Tristan, as David says, known as TJ. I work in the pain and coaching industry, so I help people deal with pain, injury, specifically athletes or gym goers, and then I do a bit of strength coaching as well at the same time. Yeah, and compete in powerlifting too.
And quite good at it.
Okay.
What did you do last year in terms of your own powerlifting exploits?
So my last competition would have been November last year. That was a full power event, so I did a squat, bench, deadlift, obviously, and 247 squats, 162 bench, and a 280 deadlift. That was an 84 kg body weight.
Nice, and you took home gold with that?
Gold, yeah, won that in qualification to what we have a division-based competition, so up to pro-am level. Now that's in August this year, so a long off season to try and get a bit bigger and stronger.
Do you already have targets set on what you would like to get?
Yep. The week after I had my target set for this.
Do you mind sharing what that is?
Well, the target is a 725 kg total and coming in around 90 kilograms. That would be the goal. It'll bring it's all based off of DOT score, so sort of a power to weight ratio thing.
Yeah.
So we'll increase that and keep me at that level. The qualification, I need to stay at that. But it'll be about 35 kg total increase. That'll be my minimum that I want.
And you're going from 84 to 90?
That's the plan, yeah.
Will this be the first time?
So normally I walk around at around 87-ish,
yeah,
and then do the warm manipulation. So this is the first time I'll ever hit anywhere near. Now, when I say 90, I'll probably try, depending on time-wise, I'm going to try get to about 92, 93, and then just a small wall manipulation for weigh-ins, because we have a 24-hour weigh-in. But yeah, it's 90 will be the heaviest I've ever been in my life. So
nice, cool.
That's a mindset thing as well.
Yeah,
getting over that number. So.
Nice. So, as you can tell from even just that, TJ knows what he's talking about when it comes to powerlifting, and it probably helps that you're a physio and a powerlifter. You both benefit from you being both. Would you agree?
I think whenever you're going to someone that deals with the pain and you're an athlete, is them knowing your sport, or them even doing a sport, plays a huge role, because you can't replicate a heavy movement lying on a bed like this, which is what sometimes you go into a physio or therapist and you go and they do sort of tests and you go, well, that's weak. It's like, well, I mean, it only happens, someone comes to me and they experience pain squatting, or say benching 150 kilograms. I can't replicate that here. I need to go out and see them do it and see if I can see anything, notice anything, try a few things, go back and retest it. And that I find is what helps. And for someone like yourself and myself, that training is it's just part of our life. To be told you can't do it, for a lot of people therapists don't realize the psychological effect that can have on someone. So when you're in the trenches as such and you're involved in it, if someone said to me, I can't train for 3 or 4 weeks because of an issue I'm having, it would drive me around the bend. I don't know how I'd react. So I know for that person, my job is to make sure you can do the thing you want to do. Even though we might have to pull back a load a little bit, we'll still work around it, but we'll still do that thing so that you can keep the positivity and the familiarity of doing it and feel good factor,
I'm sure you've seen or heard of physios telling people just to outright avoid lifting if they come across an injury.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's the whole fear thing. I mean, what people don't realize is that to actually hurt yourself is quite challenging. And just because you're having a bit of pain doesn't mean you have anything physically wrong. We find that the body has a way of minding itself, and you might like something or something doesn't feel right. It'll let you know in some sort of symptom. Generally it's pain, but it doesn't mean there's a physical trauma there. It doesn't mean you have a muscle tear or a strain or anything at all. It's just a positional loading thing where the tissue just doesn't want to tolerate load, and its response to you is pain, because that way you react. And that, for a lot of people, pain is the fear of the unknown. If I keep training, will I make it worse? Will I do more damage? These are the common things that people think about. But when you've dealt with athletes of all sorts of levels, you realize, you know, like it's a lot harder to actually hurt yourself. The smartest thing to do is pull back, load a little bit, and pain will train within like a low level pain, a tolerable pain, you know, while addressing it.
So is that the answer, to actually do the thing that they're afraid of doing, but just managing the load?
That's your immediate thing, because we know that load and pain has a relationship where the more load, when currently in pain, the more load you go, sometimes the pain goes up.
Yeah.
That's just your body saying, look, I really don't like that, like let's just pull back a bit.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, if someone tells you to stop, if we were doing your bench programming and you start experiencing pain, and we decide, okay, we'll pull bench for 6 weeks. We pull bench, we do all these rehab things and whatnot, and we come back in 6 weeks and you bench again and the pain's still there. We've lost 6 weeks of having no baseline, no metric to measure, nothing.
Yeah.
So if you do the thing that hurts, and say you experienced pain at 100 kg on the bench and it was, you know, a 3 out of 10, perfect, that's our baseline. We know if we do 100 kg for 3 reps, we experience pain at 3 out of 10, cool. Every, say, third day, we're going to try that 100 kg again, see what the pain feels like. Has the pain dropped? Perfect, that's progress. Can we load 110 and the pain hasn't increased? That's progress, because the body's allowing you to push more load without making you more pain, like showing you more pain. So we have to be able to measure where we are. If we stop doing the thing, we have no metric to measure where you are in terms of the recovery until you do it again. And the longer that happens, every movement you do is a skill. The longer you're without it, you have to come back to a point to start again.
Makes sense.
And you know yourself, like if you, running is a prime example of people, like running, if you don't run consistently, it feels like you're starting again all the time.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies to any movement in the gym. It's still a skill. You get stronger, but it's a skill, you know, to learn it. And as I say, the longer you're away from it, the harder it is to come back to it. And that mental side of, is it going to hurt when I come back? Is this going to be sore? What's this going to feel like? And you create this, you hype yourself up in anxiety and apprehension of pain. And we know that when you are anticipating pain, you have a higher probability of feeling it,
right,
and also feeling it at a higher level than it would have if you just went in with no expectations.
Yeah, I think I might need to, when I finally decide to fully attack and address my lower back, I think I'm going to need to get onto it. So alright, TJ, that makes a lot of sense. So TJ knows what he's talking about, and as I said, we know that I've taken my bench from 150 last year to 170. I was looking forward to asking this question because I never actually asked it. Did you think I was going to get it?
No.
Nice.
And that wasn't a personal sort of or a negative look on you. That was just knowing how much it takes to increase a bench press, especially naturally, over time, is what was leading me to believe it'd be a very big challenge. And because the frequency at which you currently bench was only roughly once a week, right? Like I bench 4 days a week, every session I bench, which is probably why in the beginning you got a quicker progress because of the increase in volume.
Yeah.
But at some point, that newbie increase will slow down, right? Which is what happens then. Getting your first 5 or 10 kg will come quickly, and then over time that slows down because that sort of new adaptation isn't as fast.
Yeah.
And the closer you get to your max, the smaller your gains become, right?
Yeah.
And everything works on percentages. So the closer you get to that 170, the smaller percentage is still a big number, in kilograms. So I honestly didn't think it, but that's just from it. There's not very many people that would have put that way,
cool,
as far as I can imagine.
Yeah, I knew myself I was almost overly optimistic towards it. Part of that is because I knew there were so many things I wasn't doing right.
Yeah. And
I knew by coming to you that you were going to help me address those. Like I had a feeling last year I would have got 160 by myself if I kept doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I knew from getting from 150 to 160 is one thing. From 160 to 170 is like a whole other kettle of fish.
And that's what I said to you when you came to 170. I was like, get to 160 first.
Yeah.
John, this is where instead of 20 kg, just worry about 10. As you would with clients with fat loss. Let's worry about the first kilogram. First, worry about 10 kilograms, worry about the first. And that also, because the more things you can tick off along the way, the more your determination and your confidence and your drive and want and desire to get there goes. That's why when you take a big 20 kg goal, if that's going to take a year, your drive, motivation, determination starts dying when it doesn't get to there. Whereas if you go, okay, let's do thrift, okay, perfect, bang, there's a tick. we've completed something.
Momentum.
Excellent, exactly. The next goal, the next goal, the next goal.
That is funny. I do think about my clients' progress the exact same way. Because usually people come in with big weight loss goals or...
People see the end goal.
Yeah.
They don't see the goals in between.
Yeah. And I was spooked because I failed 160 twice.
Yeah.
So I was spooked. I was like, geez, I think I might have bitten off more than I could chew here with 170.
But there's the phrase that if you reach for the sky, you might touch the stars.
Yeah.
You have to have a bigger goal at some point. You have to have goals in between and short-term goals, but your long-term goal has to be almost something that scares you.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way you're going to push yourself.
Yeah.
If you're that type of individual.
100%. That's cool. Because I remember when I said it to you initially, you were like looking at me and being like, it's pretty big. Pretty big goal. I was like, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And funny enough, recently, so I benched 170 at 90, either 98.5, 99 kilos. Last weekend I benched 165 at 93 kilograms.
There we go.
So that was a nice.
So there's actually logic to that. So a lot of people tell you, especially in powerlifting, when you have a goal of like a total or a bench or a deadlift or a squat, whatever the case is, do it at a heavier body weight first.
Yeah.
And then cut down and repeat it. It just makes more sense. There's not that it's less effort, but the more mass and the more strength you have, obviously things become easier with heavier weight.
Yeah.
But then having done it before, the mental side is better, that when you drop weight, you've done it before, I can still do this. We have to be a bit stubborn.
So I was going to talk to you about that. Would you say me reaching that goal, or anyone for that matter, getting an impressive 1RM, like something that's like a little bit abnormal, would you say that's more down to, there's a lot of moving parts, but personality traits, or how much does genetics come into it? Because I've had people say to me, I said it to you already, that someone assumed that I benched that just because of genetics.
So I think to achieve a goal that might be determined or kind of sort of described as outlandish, you have to have a bit of stubbornness and sometimes a bit of ignorance, but not in a bad way. You have to be like, fuck it, I might fail, but so what? If I don't try it, I won't find out. And you have to be stubborn because you're gonna have hiccups along the way. Again, with like with your clients, if you have a fat loss client, you're gonna have weeks where the scale might go the other way. But there's a myriad of factors to that. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of the process or the journey, whatever phrase you want to use.
Yeah.
So you have to be stubborn and accept that you're gonna have shit weeks. Sometimes something's gonna feel like someone turned gravity up tenfold, and then some weeks you feel like the bar is empty. Yeah. But you have to be stubborn when the challenges come. That it's only a hiccup, it's a speed bump in the road, but everything's still gonna go in the right direction.
Yeah.
And genetics, to me, it's immeasurable. So why count it as a factor? And I do find, and people might or might not agree with this, I find people that blame or tell people they only did something because of their genetics are people that aren't willing to put in the work to try to get to the same point. It's hate comes from below, and a lot of people will blame genetics or this or that or next thing, and it's like, well, maybe they just tried fucking hard and put the work in.
Yeah, last year was definitely, I said in my last YouTube video that I've almost been on a journey of self-discovery with my training, and I'm questioning things I thought I believed to be true, and questioning and pushing my own limits, and I found I was wrong about a lot of things with some of the lifts, some of the things that happened last year. So it was a case of, first of all, acknowledging that there's things I don't know, and there's things, what am I trying to say? There's things I didn't know, and there was things I didn't know I could do, and the only way I found out about that was to actually go and try and do it and really commit to the process, commit to the plan. And like you said, be stubborn, like go through those days where there was days where, like I came up here the last time before 170, I failed 165. Terrible with you. It's like take those days in the chin, still go back to the drawing board and keep plugging away.
Because it's every week that you turn up that adds up in the end. I say each week won't be the same, but turning up and doing the thing is what gets you to the goal. Because if there's no point giving up halfway through, like what have you achieved? Absolutely nothing. You're a failure, and that might be harsh on people, but it is what it is. That's why you have to have smaller goals in between to make up for those shit weeks when you look back. But I achieved this. But I achieved that. So that if the pros all outweigh the cons, you're more likely to succeed and keep pushing on. And that's why it's so important to have various goals, not just one.
Yeah, I made peace with how hard 165 was. I made peace with that I might not actually get 170, but I stayed going with the process. I was like, look, it's gotten me this far, let's keep going. And if I get to 165, that's still going to be a 15 kilo increase on the one round, so I was happy. So maybe there was a psychological component there to like being okay with not getting 170, but still going ahead with the plan.
Yeah, it's a tough one because you have to be okay with failing.
Yeah.
Because every failure is a lesson to learn. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like no one that's good at anything didn't fail once.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. But it's the people that are not willing to accept failure that will struggle to get to that point.
Yeah. And now I'm at a point where I believe I can bench more than 170. Maybe not right now, because it's not my goal right now, but I'm thinking maybe next year, the next time I decide to go for a bulk, I don't see why I can't increase my bench press from 170 to whatever.
Yeah. There is like, no one knows what the limit is, right, for every individual. It's completely based on individuality, so no one knows what the limit is, but until you try to get there, neither will you. Yours is,
I almost have a theory that we don't have a limit either, because it almost defies like the idea of progressive overload and how as humans we have the ability to adapt to the demands we place on our body. So how can there actually be a limit if technically we're always trying to progress and we do find ways of progressing? I almost think it's like a funnel. So we start down here and this is like what we're capable of, but as we progress, it just turns into like this funnel that just gets narrower over time, but not really a ceiling. No, can't prove that.
No, but you see, you also have a thing where to get to that limit of something else has to give, right? So I'm not a big fan of look, you can do the chasing two rabbits and you'll catch one, right? But at the same time, in a sport or in life, whatever, you have two options. You can broaden your skill set, or you can hone in on that one skill. You can get better at one skill, or you can broaden the amount of skills you have. You can't do both. So if you want to get better at a sport, something else outside has to give, right? Because no one at an elite level didn't make some rather drastic sacrifices at some point. And while for the vast majority of people you can do a lot of things to get to elite level, you can't. You have to do less things and focus on one thing, and other sacrifices have to be made. It's like the whole thing of, you can still drink alcohol and lose weight. You can, absolutely. But if you want to get on a bodybuilding stage, you can't do alcohol. Anyway, do you know what I mean? Like there is bits of everything. So you have to be willing to, how badly do you want that thing, and how much are you willing to do to get to it? Okay,
because that's probably a good segue. Someone asked, the question was for me, but you sort of answered that. Someone asked, did focusing on my bench and prioritizing so much take away from other lifts I was doing? You kind of cover that, because if you give time to something, you're naturally going to take time away from other things if you're trying to prioritize one lift. Now, my own experience, last year was one of my best years across the board in terms of progression on nearly every single one of my lifts. But that was
gaining weight too?
There was a lot of moving factors there. I was bulking. There was a mindset switch there where I was like, I want to really test myself in all areas. So maybe the next time if I try and bring my bench past 170, then it might come a point where I need to do a little bit more to where other things I'm going to have to sacrifice.
I think in this situation there's a couple of variables, right? I don't think there's a black and white answer. I think it also comes down to how much can you recover from, right? So if it's just bench, like any accessory to give you realistically are going to be building tissue around the joints, around the shoulder, around the chest, around the back. So it's still going to be contributing to other moving parts of the body, right? And other muscle groups. So depending on what your goal is, if it's physique based and you're having to sacrifice a few other movements to accommodate more rep work on bench or more frequency at bench, then maybe your physique might progress as quickly for that period of time. But I don't think it's going to take anything away per se. You won't lose anything.
Okay.
Because you progress on a load of things at the same time. Right? So I don't think necessarily it'll take away. I think that's a case of, if I wanted to try get good at powerlifting, my bodybuilding might suffer a little bit.
Okay.
Or if I want to get good at powerlifting, my hurling might take a hit. or if I get better hurling, my powerlifting might take hits. I think as a more of a holistic approach, but I think focusing on one individual lift, like in your case, we were only really doing bench twice a week.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't enough to really have a massive impact on everything else. You might have the time to take. You might have to sacrifice time in life. You know, I mean, if you're busy, you mightn't have time to add in an extra 40 minutes of bench. So you might have to sacrifice a bit of the back or a bit of the legs or whatever the case is to accommodate that goal. But again, it's only for a period of time. So in the grand scheme of things, it probably makes no difference. It probably helps.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get stronger and bigger and denser anyway. You know.
That makes sense. And last question we got from someone was, why do I keep hitting the bench off the rack when I'm benching? How do I fix that?
You're too far up the bench.
Too far up?
Yeah, so you need to bring your whole body down further. So for a lot of people, depending on how you bench, for a lot of people, when you're lying on the bench, if you look up and your eyes are looking straight to the bar is directly above your eyes, that's a good starting point. But I wouldn't advise being any higher than that. So the bar, you need to be at your eyes or further up your head when you're looking straight up at the roof.
What if the person is hitting not the top of the rack, but hitting the side, one of the sides, like the bar is drifting and hits the sides? Because I think that's this guy's problem.
That would have to be. You'd have to look at that and see. That could be things like, are they on the right position on the pad on the bench? Are they off to one side a little bit? If it's actually drifting during movement, then that kind of needs to be looked at and seen. Although it might not be a problem, the fact that it's hitting the rack is a problem, because when you're trying to go from 1RM, you don't want anything like that to happen, because that's game over. That'll throw you off completely. You want as little resistance as possible for it. But from like a benefit of growth point of view, probably not going to make a difference. But from a safety and a efficiency point of view, it probably needs to be addressed. But that would need to be looked at as to what's happening, which arm or which shoulder is not wanting to tolerate load, because obviously at some point something's tolerating load more on the other side, and that's what's switching you around.
Okay, so it could be when he hits a certain load.
A certain amount of effort produced, some tissue or joint mightn't be comfortable with that level of effort, and therefore it shifts tissue load to another part of the body, and that's when things start to kind of go askew maybe.
Okay, cool. Alright, awesome. So guys, that was all bonus stuff there really, because really I reached out to TJ and we said we were going to go over the accessories, which we're going to dive into now. But all that was really, really cool stuff. It was good to get your take on a lot of that. So with the accessories, it's actually interesting because I never questioned why you gave me the exercise you did.
Yeah.
It was a case of, I understand sometimes as a client you just need to shut up, listen to what your coach tells you.
Yeah.
But I'm even interested myself in why you gave me some of the exercises you did. What was your thought process behind them? So if you want to take it away.
Yeah, so a lot of, like in your case, we were massively increasing volume. Okay, we doubled frequency. Even though it went from 1 to twice, it's still 100%. Okay. Volume was massive compared to what you were doing. We were doing a relatively high intensity day and then a low intensity day. So we're going to be loading the shoulder a lot more. And to sort of counteract any potential issues, I address the tissues that are involved. So like you did pec minor, which is quite an involved muscle in the bench, especially at the lower ends, that attaches the front of the shoulder.
Where is the pec minor here?
Pec minor is under your pec major, so it joins from the first cartilage of your ribs 1 to 5, and then into the front of the shoulder. So it runs in this sort of angle, and it's actually under your pec. You can actually feel it under your arm. If you push up into your pec, there's like a thick tendony. That's generally where your pec minor becomes tendinous into there, and that plays a huge role in the bench. But I find it just seems to, people think that if they just do chest work that hits pec minor, but one of its jobs is to depress the shoulder. So as you'll notice, one of your movements I gave you was when you were pushing down across the body, and that is directly targeting one of its jobs of depression of the shoulder. So we know it gets load if that happens, and you can feel a nice pump off it as well. It feels good. Like
I've used that with clients who have no interest in like the bench press aspect, but they loved the feet. They felt like they were getting an upper chest pump.
You can't not get a pump from it. If you do it right, it's one of the nicest feeling exercises. And for a lot of people, it gives you more width of your chest. So it will make once it grows, we're going to grow out here. So it will give you width as well. And the entire, like if your muscle under your pec major, if that grows, obviously your pec's going to push up more. So you're going to grow chest anyway. Like there's no downside to training it. You're just training another muscle.
I tried looking for that online. What do you call that? Pec minor fly?
I just came up with it. Like I don't know.
That's yours, because I did.
I've never seen it. Yeah, I've never seen it being done. It's just one I just I can't remember. I think I was going through an anatomy video for someone, and I was watching video. I was thinking, how the hell would I load that like properly? And I just tried that, and I've used it for so many powerlifters as like a fairly staple accessory, and I found it's I wouldn't say solved a lot of problems, but definitely helped a lot of shoulder pain and stuff like that in pressing movements. And it's just there's no downside if you're someone that does powerlifting or someone that benches a lot or loads of chest work. There's no downside to having stronger muscles in your chest, right?
Okay.
So I can't see a negative to it, and I like training from end ranges. So starting up here, you're in a fully lengthened position and then a fully shortened. In terms of that, I prefer that, which is then why I gave you things like behind the head lat pull downs and behind the head shoulder press, because again, I'm getting you into end range motions, getting tendons, ligaments, and tissue used to being loaded in that position, because generally, in theory, we're always weaker in our end range. The longer a muscle is, the harder it is to contract it, right? You feel weaker. So getting you conditioned into those positions and get that tissue conditioned under load there means that anything in between should be less effort.
That's why I thought you gave me a lot of that stuff, because of where I was placed. I was like, if we take a bench press, bottom of a bench press,
well, all your force is end range.
These positions,
because here you're pretty much shortened in most of the positions in the anterior side of the body and the front. Everything's shortened when you're at the top. But as it comes down and you have to produce all the force at the bottom, is when you're in that, I'm not going to use the word compromise, but that weaker position. So the stronger we can make all those joints in their end ranges and all those positions stronger and tolerate more load, there's just likely to be no issues from it.
So are we typically weaker here or weaker here?
Weaker at the bottom.
We're weaker at the bottom
because we're lengthened from there, and that's that's why people fail down here, right? No one fails up there because you have much more. You can produce more force. It's much more. It's easier from there. The more of an end range you're in, the more force is required to press. And when it comes to the leg and the arm, when you push, you internally rotate. That's how you produce force. So when you, like, one of the pec minor is another muscle that actually internally rotates the shoulder. It's not a rotator cuff, but it rotates the shoulder as well as depresses it. So we're killing a few birds with only a couple stones, and that's the sort of logic behind it.
So can we get a quick recap of the pec minor fly? Just a quick recap, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, so pec minor is we just literally have a cable machine from above, handle is below. I said I'll link it, you can link the video into here if you want. You're basically going to have your knuckles facing the ground, and you're going to push across the body, and at the bottom you just drop the shoulder, and straight away I can really feel the solid contraction. It's that little extra bit helps. So we just go down and then a little drop, and at little drop you'll feel a much more intense contraction, especially when there's load. It's almost like a cramp, but like a good one, you know. It's like, oh shit, I can feel that. That's good. Like, you know, it's a good pump, and it's just a nice exercise, even if you don't have to do it for any particular reason. But if it's part of your chest day, I'd sooner do that than I would do a proper fly.
Right.
In my own opinion.
Okay, next exercise then, the power raise. So this is one I'm still doing. I really like the way this feels. It feels like it's just almost like a better version of a rear delt dumbbell fly. Yeah,
it's a bit like a reverse fly. So what I can do is I'll give you these videos you can link up in, people can watch them when they want. But again, what we're doing is we're contracting, we're lengthening here, right? What we call passively, because we're contracting the posterior, so the anterior relaxes to allow for length to happen. So now I'm sort of unloading these tissues. And of course, what people don't realize is to have a big bench, you want a big back. Which is why I didn't really give you many back things, because I knew you did a lot of back work. I didn't see the benefit in giving you any.
Big back for stability reasons?
Pressing. We actually, I feel my back more than I feel my chest on the bench.
So the back that's not bullshit. The back and
lats are a huge component of bench as well. What you must remember is when your arm moves, you have 20 muscles moving at the same time. So you want to kind of make them all play ball. You want to make them all nice and strong and all, you know, willing to tolerate load, because the more muscles you can use, the more weight you can press, right? You're making efficiency. But lat work is a huge component of bench pressing. Huge component of it, yeah. But again, as I say, I know from seeing your training stuff, I knew you did enough back work. I didn't see the benefit of, or the necessity to give you stuff. Whereas if you were just coming into me as a blank canvas, that would have been huge amount of back work there.
And any other reasons for the power raise other than like stretching the capacity?
Just loading, I suppose loading scapular retraction a little bit.
Okay.
So pulling it towards the spine, because generally that will happen when your arms come down.
True. Yeah.
So we're just getting movements loaded, moving those joints in movements. It's like breaking down the bench press to some extent.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way my philosophy works when it comes to certain movements in compound movements, is breaking down the segments so that we can make sure every bit of the movement can tolerate load. Because the more load each movement can tolerate, the less likely you are to experience issues.
That makes sense. I really like that lift. As I said, I'm still doing it, and another one.
And it feels good. Do you know?
It feels amazing.
And it's a massive range.
Yeah.
Because you're literally starting from here.
And
then it's all the way up. Like, yeah, you can't get exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So everyone starts from here in a raise. No one starts from here, and if you do, there's no resistance anyway. Whereas if you're lying on your side, the minute you pull that dumbbell, you're contracting tissue from the start.
Yeah, that feels really good.
Some of them just also feel nice.
Yeah.
Do you know? So even if it doesn't have to be specific. In your case, there was a bit of specificity to why, but for general population, these are movements that just feel cool, and like they're still going to grow tissue.
Yeah.
Do you know?
And another one I'm still doing, and there's a bit of controversy around this movement that it's dangerous, is the behind the neck press. So one of the reasons you said it kind of, these end ranges just getting me more comfortable here. What was another reason for doing that movement?
People don't realize that behind the neck press works a lot of the upper back as well. I used to have a video of it many years ago, doing it without a shirt on to show people how much tissue moves when you load there. And I do it because I like the way it feels. And it's another one I give a lot of powerlifters simply because of squatting, especially on heavy loads. If you can get used to tolerating a heavy load in this position, then when the bar is just sitting on your back, your shoulders should be comfortable in this position. Because you're used to pushing in it. If you just sit there passively, it should be comfortable. So it's getting familiarity and tolerance in certain positions is the main thought process behind them.
Okay. And to people who say that movement is dangerous?
It's a myth. If you can get to this position, why would it be dangerous? Getting to this position and pressing is the same as saying a bicep curl is dangerous. You can get to this position, you can curl, there is no difference. If you can get into a position and you progressively overload that position, there's no issue. Do you know? Some people just can't get to the position, so they'll try and force it, and it'll be quite painful and uncomfortable. And
that's when the issues arise.
That's it's just not comfortable. You're not ready for it yet. You might have to do other work to get to that position.
Yeah.
But for the vast majority of people, this shouldn't be an impossible movement. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more comfortable it becomes. A lot of people behind the head pressing first is quite uncomfortable because they're not used to being there.
Yeah. It's
not painful, it just doesn't feel nice. But light load, repetitions, even a broom, a brush stick.
Yeah.
Just to get that position moved, and all of a sudden you find you can get naturally more and more because your body gets comfortable. It's like, oh, okay, this is okay, there's nothing wrong, I don't feel a problem, and it becomes more relaxed in that position.
Awesome. And are you typically stronger pressing behind the neck than you are pressing in front of the body?
I would say, if we're talking about normal, no, I'd say front would be more. I can do similar, but only because I've trained the one.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's too new behind the head. They're not going to be, it's going to be like anything. They will get stronger at it. But we tend to find, the thing is, pushing from the front, not everyone pushes straight up. They tend to use a bit of pec, a bit of shoulder and everything, and they might go even slightly forward and get heavier, or they tend to do a bit of a dip. That becomes a bit of a push press.
Okay.
People struggle to do that from behind the head. So behind the head is very strict in terms of you can either do it or you can't. When you go to fail, it just stops. There's no like compensation because of where it is. You can't pull it forward. You hit your back of the head. Do you know? So
I think that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of people clip their head when they first started because they're not used to it. So I wouldn't say traditionally. I'd say no. You're unlikely to be stronger behind the head unless it's something that you've spent a lot of time focusing on.
That's good because my previous 1 rep max with over the head pressing in front of the bar in front of my body was 70 kilos, and now I recently did 80 kilos. I think I got for 1 rep.
Okay.
And I'm able to comfortably press 70 for, depending on the day, anywhere from like 4 to 7 reps behind the neck now.
Yeah, cool.
So that's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, there's no so it's like anything. There's no normal, but traditionally it's more likely stronger in the front because people don't practice much behind the head.
Okay.
And again, because all that bullshit that people think it's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's like, pulling down behind the neck was always said is dangerous, lat pull down, whereas I prefer that to pulling in front.
The behind the neck lat pull-up.
Yeah, I prefer that. I face away from the stack and pull behind my head. I just feel better doing that. And then the rest of my lat work comes from kind of vertical pulling, or horizontal pulling, shall I say.
So that was the next exercise then, was the behind the neck lat pull-up.
Yeah.
So what is the benefit of that?
That's lats, and also just lats and that bringing you in that the real lengthened position of the lats, because for a lot of people, lat pull downs are slightly forward.
Yeah.
But to get you a bit more challenged, you just turn the arms more, right? Because lats help internally rotate the arm. So if we externally rotate, they're lengthened more, and then we can pull down from that position.
Okay. And that's basically it with that one.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm a big, huge proponent of training in a lengthened position for joint health, not for muscular hypertrophy, but for joint health.
That's the rage level.
Yeah, because everyone talks about lengthened partials and lengthened, but they talk about hypertrophy. I look at it from a joint perspective, not hypertrophy. You know, so I combine the two when I'm programming people, but it depends on the individual and what's the experience in doing these things. So like with you, it was all just around making sure that the bench didn't suffer if we picked up any little niggles, aches or pains, because we're doing so much more volume and frequency suddenly, which normally I wouldn't do. I would have introduced it probably a bit slower for someone else, but it was a case of fuck it, let's put the foot down and see what happens. Do you know?
And zero pain, zero injuries from all of last year's benching, and like I attempted so many 1 rep max. There was so many 1 rep max attempts last year, and like I failed a lot of those as well. I failed a load of bench press attempts last year, not one injury.
Yeah. Now, what people also don't realize is being in a carry surplus helps. Yeah. It's actually like one of the things we know from studies is when someone's going through a long-term chronic pain or injury, that increasing calories can help. So especially if they're from a deficit to at least maintenance.
Really well.
And you'll find people doing photo shoots and stuff, or long-term deficit people tend to pick up niggles, with the aches and pain and stuff. That's common. Okay. So like sometimes you can increase calories, sometimes you can't, depending on the goal which you have to suffer on. But calories is a huge thing when it comes to pain. Actually, people don't really take it into account. Yeah. I'll talk to people and be like, "Oh, I've been in deficit for like a year or something." I'm like, and you're still pushing hard in training, and you look at everything else, and the training isn't the problem. So it has to be something outside. Yeah. You realize your body's under stress. You know, being in a deficit, depending on the severity of it, can be stressful over time. Yeah. That's why you're not meant to be one forever. No more than a surplus forever, or whatever the case is. So that has to be taken account. So your goal was in the prime of the rest of your lifestyle, because it would have been not that it wasn't hard by any means, but if you were cutting something, that would have been, especially natural, that would have been a nightmare. Like, yeah. Do you know? Yeah. So a lot of your lifestyle factors were the prime time for the goal, so it worked well. That's part of the reason I was like, yeah, let's just keep running. Yeah. Whereas if there was other things I take into account, we might have had to pull back the progression or rate of attempts.
Makes sense. So I think in terms of accessories, that's pretty much the general gist.
Yeah. Because again, you were doing shoulder work, you're doing chest work. I didn't have to, again, you were already experienced at training, so it's, I won't say it's easier, but I could be a little bit more nuanced with the accessories than if you're someone that just was coming in off the street. Yeah. Then it's a bit different ball game then, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I loved it, and the body was completely injury free. Yeah. Felt good. And as I said, I'm still doing two of those accessories right now. I'm still trying to progress them. Yeah. The power raise is obviously a slow burner.
It is, yeah.
Trying to get
the leverage is
15 kilos for like 5-6 reps.
Yeah, because you're at such a weak point that it's hard. Once you get past kind of parallel to the ground, you're good to go. Yeah. But that first half is humbling. Yeah. Very humbling. Yeah.
Awesome. Alright guys, in terms of accessories, that's pretty much what we wanted to cover today. Hopefully you took something from it. And TJ, if you want to plug your services, your social media.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at tpainfree, or my website's pain2performance.ie, and all my details and contacts and stuff is there.
Awesome. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and
Thank
TJ,
you.
thanks for your time.
No problem, thank you.